You have to help the next person out. I mean, man, look, if it wasn't for that remedial class and those teachers, they really taught me about helping somebody out. Because again, I shouldn't have been in that class. And so they knew it. So they was like, you going over there to help him. You going to help her. We're going to help you with this, but you're going to have to help. And so it was, they were modeling to me about, each one teach one, supporting your sister and your brother, pulling them up. And don't ever forget that we're here to help you, but you're here to help others that are with you and those that come behind you. So those are the lessons that I cherish from Jackson State.
Welcome to HBCU4U Podcast. I'm your host, Galen Turner, and today's guest is family, friend, and a fellow Jackson State graduate. So I hope that you enjoy this message and episode. Reverend Dr. Michael V. Johnson came out of Holly Springs, Mississippi as a star quarterback, made his way to Jackson State, and started off on the football team as a defensive back before injury changed that path. But what I respect about Michael is that he didn't let that one chapter define the whole story. He kept building. He earned his degrees from Jackson State, including a doctorate in education, and has gone on to serve as a teacher, principal, youth coach, and now director of education at Oakley Youth Development Center. He's also an associate pastor at Zion Travelers in Jackson, Mississippi, a devoted husband to his wife, Tamika, my cousin, and a proud father of 6. Michael Johnson is a man of faith, leadership, and purpose, and I am honored to have him on the podcast today. Welcome, Reverend Doctor. How you doing,
Glad to be
sir?
here with you, man. Glad to be here with you. Excited to have this conversation with you today.
You know, we go way, way, way back, and I'm just honored to have you on the show. And let's jump straight into the questions, okay?
All right.
Question number 1. What's your Jackson State story, and what made JSU the right choice for you coming out of Holly Springs?
My Jackson State story begins with finishing high school. You said I was a star quarterback. I'm going to say I was pretty good of a quarterback from my home. I wouldn't say star, but I think I did pretty good. And I didn't have a lot of scholarship options as it relates to sports. I think I had 3. And one of them was to Kentucky State, which is where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to Kentucky State and play quarterback, continue to play quarterback. But my uncle, who was a Jackson State alum, he played in the Boom, and he was adamant about, no, you need to come to the SWAC. And I was like, I didn't really know a lot about Jackson State football, believe it or not. I knew about Walter Payton, but that's about all I knew. I was like, I don't know. So I went down in the summer and I met Coach Carson, and he said, well, he actually coached at Russ College, which is a college in Holly Springs. So he kind of knew a little bit about my community, and he knew a little bit about me. So he said, well, I'll tell you what, you come down here and you work hard, then I definitely give you an opportunity. So, but you'll have to walk on. And I was like, I don't want to walk on. I want to go and start playing. So,
Right.
Long story short, my mom, God bless her, she said, hey, the first school that selects you, she made me apply for Jackson State. And the first acceptance letter you get, that's where you're going. And it so happened, I don't know how, Jackson State ended up being the first letter I received.
Right.
And that's how I ended up at Jackson State.
So when you got there, what was your transition like? I know, did you play both sides in high school?
Oh, yeah. I played quarterback and I played cornerback. So I played on offense and defense. It was like an Iron Man team. We didn't come out the field a lot. But when I got to Jackson State, I couldn't play my first year. I was what's called a Prop 48. So I didn't know anything about that when I got there. and found out that I had a low score in reading or something on the ACT, even though I scored, you only needed a 17 to be cleared in the clearinghouse at the time. So my counselors in high school, which I took it in the 11th grade, after a football game, they told me, hey, you good. Well, I got Jackson State. They said, no, you're not. So you're going to have to sit out. And so I went through that first year as a prop 48, sitting and watching Jackson State win the SWAC that year. But it was a good time for me because I went through a transformation and changed. Really, I needed to change my life that year. So 96, 97, that first year of college was a change for me.
And you speak of you need to make a change. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, when I came out of high school, I had a lot of rough edges. So, basically, man, I was roughneck and, just needing to find some direction and still angry, still smoking weed. I was doing some things that, just was destructive. It was going to lead me down a path that was destructive. So when I wasn't playing football in the fall of 96, a few things happened. Tupac died. I think that was the Friday the 13th when we heard the news that he passed. And everybody was, kind of, was in an uproar basically because Pac had passed. And I think that's when me and some other students, we were just kind of thinking about our own lives, about, okay, what are we going to do? And, because at that time, there was a lot of beef going on and, people were choosing sides. But then when that happened, that kind of woke us up. So that kind of made the transition to getting back going to church. A lot of us started going back to church, and I was one of them. And from there, I got saved in October of 96. Again, I wasn't playing football, so this gave me a chance to kind of focus on my spiritual life, and which I think was the most important decision I made because it shaped my life to who I am today.
Wonderful. Can you speak a little bit on, you mentioned being still angry. Can you touch on that a little bit? Looking back, where was that anger coming from that you can speak on?
Well, most of the anger was centered toward not having my father in my life and just trying to still figure out who I was because I didn't have that male figure to kind of, go to. I did have my uncle. I did have my uncles. I did have my coaches, but I didn't have a father. I didn't have a dad. I didn't have somebody I could talk to. So that was frustrating because I got a chance to observe my teammates and friends who had that relationship.
Right.
Me, it was a void. So, I was angry about that. And it was displayed in some of my actions and how I acted at school, sometimes at home. I was just angry. And so that's where that anger came from.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned finding yourself and finding God while you sat out that first year because of Prop 48. And just, you mentioned it already, but if I can sum it up, Prop 48 is basically you're ineligible either for grades or for your entrance exams, whether it be SAT or ACT. Is that a good?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You didn't your either your ACT or SAT or your cumulative GPA is not at a certain point of you didn't score or earn a certain amount of grade point average in certain areas. So in my case, which was unfortunate, I shouldn't have never had that, but because I was angry and just kind of playing around, I can't blame my counselors on it all. It was on me too because I actually stopped taking college courses after the 10th grade because I had already taken Algebra 1 in 8th grade and, Algebra 2 and geometry. So I said, I didn't want to take any more math. I'm just trying to graduate. So,
Yeah.
So I kind of shortchanged myself. So when I got to college, I had to take those remedial classes, which were to me, some of the greatest classes that I took because I got a chance to meet some great counselors, some great teachers who cared about me at Jackson State and saw that, hey, you should be doing, more. And thank God for those ladies.
Fantastic. Now, circling back to football, you actually did get the opportunity to start that journey your sophomore year, but it was interrupted. Can you speak a little bit about your injury and how that affected you mentally, and what helped you pivot from focusing on athletics and academics to just sheerly academics?
Well, my sophomore year was excellent. I got a chance to play the third or fourth game of the year and never look back. So I was on the traveling squad. I played with several people who went to the NFL. Roommate, God rest his soul, Rashad Anderson, my traveling roommate. We got a chance to travel. He and I roomed up a lot. It was a great team that I was on. I got a chance to meet Eddie Robinson. That was his last year coaching. Came on the field, and we beat Grambling pretty good that year. And
Cool.
we went and we played in a playoff game, the last playoff game Jackson State has played in Western Illinois, and we got a chance to meet Walter Payton. He came down on the field with us. Close game. Look it up and see we really winning the game. They came back and beat us at the end. And so, but just my sophomore year, I can't even put it in words how excited I was about playing. And we played Southern. I think it was 50, 60,000 fans, almost 50,000 before the game started. So when I saw Dion doing this thing, hey, that was kind of common in the mid-90s to see that many people in the stands. So
Right.
that year was great, man. And then come spring of 98, which was the end of it was fall of 97 when I played my sophomore year. And then spring of 98, I got injured in spring practice. And man, it was like my world had kind of collapsed because, you had spent all of your energy to now finally start playing.
Right.
And now all of a sudden it's gone. So mentally it was extremely tough. But what I'm not telling you, I was also up under a lot of stress too, because I was on an academic scholarship. I ended up earning a full scholarship academically at the end of my freshman year, which was biology. My major was biology education with a minor in math. So I got this big scholarship where they were paying me. And so, I was trying to keep a 3.5 or higher because they paid you a certain amount of money, where you can almost buy your own car, a brand new car. So I was trying to keep my grades up at the same time, play at a very high level athletically. So
Right.
It was a lot of competition. So I was under a lot of stress of trying to, I remember studying 11 to, we used to have night practice. So we would get out of practice at 10:30. It was crazy, man. We get out of practice at 10. It was good. It made us strong. But, Coach Carson, man, we did walkthroughs with the boom at night. So you get out of practice, the library would be closing. So you had to run, try to get a few minutes in, and then go study, then get back up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I got to go get it again. I got to study because I didn't have a lot of time. So it was just it was fun, but it was a lot of stress. So when I got injured, man, it's like things collapsed for me. But then I actually started having a little peace. So
Okay.
because I wasn't running. I wasn't running here and there. I wasn't trying to, the competition of beating myself and trying to outdo somebody else on the field. And it was like I got some peace.
Right.
And but it came in a way that I never
Anticipated.
imagined.
Yeah.
It would come that way.
So that setback eventually turned into a setup for something even greater.
Right. No question about it. Because I started now, I was already on academic scholarship. So now I could really devote myself to biology education. And so I was able to do research with Dr. Begonia and some of those professors. And, we was able to publish some of our research, and I was able to go to places like New York, Phoenix, and DC and present our research findings. And I wouldn't have never had that opportunity if I was still playing. And then, so I had a chance to travel and go and World Trade Center, all these places, and represent Jackson State at these STEM conferences. And it was phenomenal because, I was published researcher.
That's a big deal.
By the time I was, 20.
That's a big deal.
With Jackson State.
Looking back, I don't know how many publications you have under your belt, but what was the most memorable or the most proud publication? And can you speak on that specific publication, if you can recall?
It was that one. We did research on what's called phytoremediation, where we were studying how lead had gotten into paint. Well, lead-based paint had gotten into soil in low-income communities around Jackson State.
Gotcha.
Some of those shotgun homes were painted, and how it was affecting the youth. And poverty. It was heavy in poverty-stricken areas. So we were using plants to remove the lead from the soil.
Whoa!
We was able to find 2 plants, Pomia and Setback, was able to be proven to remove lead from soil. So it was huge because, again, it was Jackson State, and I was working with 2 Philippine professors, Dr. Begonias, and we were actually partnered with Mississippi State. So,
cool.
We got a chance to present our research and what we have, our findings, and so that was the first time I was able to be a part of something and go nationally to different conferences and present. I was the youngest one because I was the student. You had a grad student, was Gloria. I was undergrad. Then you had all the professors. So it was huge. So I was excited about that.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned biology education being your major, and you already alluded to that publication being a big deal and a great experience for you. Was that what drew you to education, or were there other factors as well that drew you to education after graduating from JSU at 2001?
Well, there's a funny story behind how I actually got into biology. But believe it or not, man, I just wanted to coach. I kind of not downplaying being a teacher or being in education. Nobody had graduated or finished school in my family. They had gone to college but hadn't completed the 4 years.
Right.
So me finishing was my goal. Let me finish.
Big deal.
And so so I said, well, between math and science, which one will I teach? And end up choosing science.
Okay.
But I got I have a minor in math, so I have all that up on my certification. So I really just wanted to coach, man. That's all I wanted to do.
Let's talk about it. So you started, in the education world, and within that, I believe you started coaching as well. So can you talk a little bit? I know you maybe have gone to quite a few places of employment or schools. Can you talk a little bit about your professional journey and your coaching career as well?
Oh yeah, I started off coaching in inner city Blackburn, and in particular, it wasn't in football, it wasn't in boys basketball, it wasn't in baseball, it wasn't in track. It was girls basketball, which aligned up with, again, God's plan, because I ended up having 6 kids, and my first 3 kids were girls. So being on a girls basketball team, I had to really, you can't be too aggressive, you can't be too angry. Your approach has to be totally different. And these young ladies were really prepping me to be a father of girls. So a great experience. Great young ladies. And we ended up, one of my teams, we won a city championship. So it was a great experience. So I started off then, but I ended up being a head football coach for middle school too, which we did well too, but nothing like working with those girls.
What was your proudest moment? You just mentioned the city championship. What was your proudest moment within that? Was it the process? Was it finally connecting with the girls? What was that moment for you that you knew, hey, we have something and I'm connecting with these young ladies? What was that moment for you, if you can recall?
Well, I have one for the girls and the boys, but for the girls, we were inner city, so I didn't get a chance. My girls didn't play a lot of AAU ball. They didn't have a lot of reps, like that. So I had to get on the basketball court, teach them everything. And so you only teach kids in middle school. You only have them 2 years, 7th and 8th grade. So when we got to the 8th grade, man, we were really good, and we played. We played a team where a young lady got drafted to the WNBA. Eventually, her name was LaShonda Barrett. She played for Chastain at the time, and if you knew anything about Jackson basketball back then in the early 2000s, man, it was huge. We had two, number one players in the nation. And LaShonda was the female, but she was in the 8th grade at the time, and their team was basically unbeatable. So they were playing my team, which we was going to play them in January, and we prepared, all Christmas break for them. And when I went in to talk to my girls about, I'll never forget, I had a light tan suit on, and I went in to give them the pregame speech, and they was like, "Coach, don't say nothing. We got this tonight." I said, "Okay." Then they wrote on this little quote: "Any girl can play a game, but it takes a woman to play basketball." Oh man, I knew that night it was gonna be special. And we end up losing the game. Okay. We end up losing the game. But it came down to the last 20 seconds or so. I called my last timeout, gave a play to a young lady by the name Bridget. She ended up playing for McNeese State. She could score with her left or right hand, and she went up with her left, and it rimmed out. And they ended up hitting 2 free throws and beating us by 3. But we played at Chastain. And if you know how the gym is, it's inside of the school. So everything evolves around the gym. So this gym is packed. I promise you, Gabe, you can hear a pin drop. You can hear a pin drop because those fans were so shocked that this inner city school had came over there and played those girls that way. And when we came out, because they didn't have lockers, you had to go into the classrooms.
Wow.
And so when we came out of the classroom with our things after losing, we received a standing ovation.
Wow.
And man, you talking about, that was the moment. That was the moment that I said, "Hey, look, man, that probably the proudest moment I ever had." It was better than us. Well, we won the city championship a couple summers later, but that was probably the most proudest moment.
Thank you for sharing that moment with the girls. Now, you said you had a moment with the boy team as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I had several moments. I don't know which one to choose, but I'm gonna kind of blend them together. But
go ahead. If you want to share multiple moments, this is your floor. Go ahead. Go for it.
Well, we had a team with some real short boys, inner city Jackson, and a lot of them hadn't played organized sports, in particular football. And where I'm from, it's like grit and grind, man. You got to go get it because you don't have a lot. Don't mean you can't win. So we ended up playing a team in the city who stayed like on the outskirts, and they had a lot more than we had. So when we got off the bus, the team and the coaches, they started laughing at us. They literally laughed at us. And an old football side of me came from my coach. "Hey man, we got to show them something tonight. So we're gonna shut them up tonight." And my boys felt it too, and they were just as angry and felt disrespected as I did. And I didn't have to say much, and we ended up whooping them 20-0. My little boys, and they had coaches in the press box. I only had 3 coaches, me and 2 others. It was 3 of us. They came out the press box, man, and they ran us down, shaking our hands about how our boys really embarrassed them. And to this day, if I saw, and I'm not gonna mention his name, but if I saw this coach, he's man, I don't deal with Michael Johnson, man. His team whooped my butt bad. But he don't know he was the few. His coaching staff was the few.
Them laughing at you.
And then the last one is the last
wait.
game.
Hold on. What are you still referring to Blackburn? Is it still at Blackburn?
Still Blackburn.
And these are middle school. You talking about football now?
School. Football.
You talking about football? Okay. All right. Keep going.
So the last game of the year, man, we was in a battle with this middle school team, another inner city team, who was just as tough, and came down to 2 plays. It was a 4th and 5. We needed 5 yards, and my running back Jordan got 6, and he ran out of bounds. And we had about 3 seconds left on the clock, and we had been working on this flag post play where I had my quarterback had been throwing it this flag post all week, and he was a little bit off on it. It was a play. It was like a little gimmick play where he faked a dive and rolled off and threw a flag. So for some reason, it was his senior year, and I asked James, what you want to do this last play? He said, Coach, let's do the flag. Let's do the flag play. I said, okay. So, and you have to know me, I didn't really like cell phones then, so I had a flip phone. So James called this play his 8th grade year in the huddle with his team, and I stood there and watched him. And, man, he ran it to perfection. And I think it was about at our own 35 or something like that, 35 or 40, and he just threw it in the air. Had a tight end by the name of Paul caught it, man, in the back of it, like right there at the end zone, and just fell in there. And I saw the hands go up, and Gatorade everywhere. It just got poured on me and messed my flip phone up. And it was such a shock that we beat this other team because they were very good. That they didn't want to shake our hands at the end of the game, man. And we talk about that, some of those, the 2 coaches who were my assistants, because it was just us 3.
Right.
And we were pulling that off. So we had some, coaching was a great experience, man. It's a great experience.
Fantastic. Now, you served as a teacher. You did some principal work as well. You want to talk a little bit about your experience as a principal and maybe a highlight or so, you reaching the kid, the mind of a kid or anything like that, or maybe they were in a situation of distress and you were able to, connect with them. You want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, principals, man, I had a lot of great experiences as a principal, and then I could just go down the list and name them from, performing, my school performing well to my school not performing well. I had both extremes where we worked our behinds off and had great test scores, and to where we worked our behinds off and did not score as well. And but in between all of those peaks and valleys, you have the students who remind you every day of why you're there. So I've had students. I think one of the most memorable students, and I have a picture somewhere on Facebook. I had this young man. He was in pre-K, and we had an event where we had students wear, ties and dress up. And he told his mom, "I got to dress up like Dr. Johnson today." And I didn't know about it, so she, was dropping him off. She was dropping him off that morning and said, "Look at your mini me." And I'm like, "Oh," he said, "I'm dressed up like you, Dr. Johnson." So I said, "Oh my God!" So I brought him into my office. I said, "Well, since you're going to be me today, you're going to do the work that I do." So I gave him a pen. I had some documents for him to sign and everything. So they took a picture of him at my desk, right? So that right there was a special moment with the youth.
Fantastic.
So,
fantastic. You, with all these roles that you had as a teacher, a coach, a principal, how did each of these roles help shape your leadership style?
Well, I tell you what it taught me is that leadership is a service. You're serving, and it taught me to be real, honest with myself. That there's a lot of areas that I need to grow in, because you can't get anything done without the people. So you have to really work hard at understanding their needs, what drives them, and what makes them feel satisfied with the work. So, and I think, that's an ever evolving thing that you're watching and seeing what's going to help your people achieve, and what can you do to support them in achieving. So that's probably my greatest lesson.
I think servitude is probably, in my opinion, the best style of leadership, leadership of servitude. If you have that servitude mindset, because that mindset just essentially says you have the people in mind, and it's not about you. It's about getting the best out of them and serving them as well, right? So I think that's wonderful.
Right. Well, here's the thing. You only going to be there for a moment. I mean, the whatever you're trying to accomplish has to be bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're there to lay a seed or to water a seed that's already there. And it's only for that moment. So
right.
That's my perspective.
Wonderful. Now, at some point in your educational walk, you decide to go back and get your doctorate. What led you down that path, and why did you choose Jackson State to get your doctorate?
Another great question. I had no desire, believe it or not, to get my master's nor my doctorate degree. But I worked at Blackburn, and Blackburn was a part of a feeder pattern that had a special program, a partnership with Jackson State, that if you worked in the feeder pattern, you could attend Jackson State for free and earn your master's up to your doctorate degree. So I was in a good place at a good time. And what happened was Dr. Craig, which was a professor in education at Jackson State, she pulled me into the leadership program because I just wanted to coach. But she was like, nah, you're going to get in this program because, a lot of people like you. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. So reluctantly, I got into the program. And it was a year program. And even after I earned my master's degree, I didn't even, most people went straight into administration. I kept coaching. And it was a year, maybe 2 years later before I even started as assistant principal. But I was so young. I was just 27, 28 when I started as assistant principal. And then I got directly into the doctoral program at 20. It took me 7 years to complete my doctoral degree. Now, that's a long time. I was so young. I did not want to rush it. I didn't want to, because I really was reluctantly getting into the program.
Right.
So I was just kind of and I still finished it by the age of 34. I was still young. I started it early and I finished it young. So, but I could have finished it at 31. I just didn't want to. I was just taking my time, and I was like, and it got to the point where I need to go ahead and close the door on it. So I did. But the reality is I was in a great place at a great time where I could earn those degrees and not have the debt
right.
to complete it. So that's what happened.
That's the same thing that happened to me with my MBA. I was working at Verizon at the time, and they had a tuition assistance program, not reimbursement, but assistance. And my eyes lit up like, you mean to tell me, I'm looking around like, you mean to tell me that they're going to pay for my classes like up front? I thought like this was a steal, and I couldn't pass up on that, man. Yeah.
Awesome.
Now, beyond the degrees from Jackson State, what did Jackson State instill in you that still shows up in how you lead, teach, and serve today?
You have to help the next person out. I mean, man, look, if it wasn't for that remedial class and those teachers, they really taught me about, helping somebody out. Because again, I shouldn't have been in that class. And so they knew it. So they was like, you going over there to help him. You going to help her. We're going to help you with this, but you're going to have to help. And so it was, they were modeling to me about, each one teach one, supporting your sister and your brother, pulling them up. And don't ever forget that. We're here to help you, but you're here to help others that are with you and those that come behind you. So those are the lessons that I cherish from Jackson State, because it didn't just stop there. It was in every department. It was even while I was on the team, Jackson State football team, people were helping out. So it was always help, because I ended up getting injured. And but I didn't have, at the time, my insurance didn't cover my knee surgery.
Mm.
So I went through a $28,000 bill trying to figure out how I was going to pay it. But the great Jackson State University and the ladies in the nursing that was in our health center, they was able to work things out where I didn't have to have that debt over my head, man. So it was just, that type of spirit where they worked with you, and didn't matter who you were, whether, who your family were, if you were popular or not popular, they were willing to help you. And so that's the spirit that I got from Jackson State, man, to help.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now we're about to jump into the pathway of you accepting the call for ministry. But before we get into that, this might be your segue answer. At some point, you already mentioned earlier that really for you getting into education was your path to coaching. If I'm not mistaken, you resigned from coaching, or you transitioned completely from coaching to just education and being a principal and a leader in education. What was that shift for you? What made you shift completely from coaching to just leading schools and students?
It was an opportunity. And plus, again, I was married, having children. So the reality is, I mean, with children become, you have bills. I had the degree for at least 2 years, I believe. And, an opportunity came for me to be an assistant principal came up. So the timing was right. It was God's timing. So I moved into administration. What I didn't realize is that administration, particularly being a principal, is still coaching. It's just a longer game. It's one game. When I say that, I'm talking about state tests and all of those things. So you're preparing for that one game all first, second, and third 9 weeks. So I was able to transition to that with that same mindset once I learned that being a principal was just like coaching. That I'm trying to develop my staff and students along to accomplish this goal, which takes me all the way back to playing quarterback. So it was all connected to, leading team. So that's what I'm still doing. It's like I'm still playing the game.
Wow, that's a beautiful analogy. I like that. I like that concept. All right, let's jump into ministry. In 2004, you accepted God's call to ministry. How did that call deepen or reshape the work you were already doing in education and youth development?
Well, I accepted. You mentioned accept my call. I was already doing ministry. Anybody who really knows me, from when I got saved in '96, all the way through college, man, I was a part of a Campus Crusade for Christ, Fellowship for Christian Athletes, morning prayer, which we was having. So I was already doing ministry things. I was already having Bible study. I was already, going to Christian events, speaking. So the transition really was seamless because I was already doing it. And I had been doing it since really my freshman year. So it wasn't a big transition. It was more so of relief, and it was also more so of me submitting to what I had already been doing. So that's pretty much what it was.
So with that being said, you were already doing it in an unofficial capacity, and you finally accepted that title and started doing it in an official capacity.
Correct, because anybody who knows me from college, they'll tell you, hey, he had been already doing that. You
That's
know
a
what I'm
fact.
saying? He had already been doing that. So they're not surprised by that. They probably thought I was that when I was doing it. So
That's a fact.
The difference is when you have that title of being a minister, pastor, or evangelist, you get a lot more scrutiny than just saying, hey, I'm a believer and I can talk about the Lord. But once you have that title, man, heavy is the head that wears the crown. So a lot of eyes on you. They're watching you. They're watching your wife. They're watching your children. I mean, everything is being watched. So, you have to be ready for that when you take that on.
That's a balance. That's
correct.
And it's a great segue into our next question. How do you balance that, without losing the purpose, the ultimate purpose? Your education, leadership, ministry, husband, father. How do you, find that balance?
I would just stay true to who I am, regardless of, I'm still Michael. I'm still, for some people, Mike J. I'm still MJ to some people. I mean, just stay grounded to who I am, all these other things have been add-on. It was never my goal. I didn't set out. This was the plan God had for me. So just staying true to who I am, still going back to my home, Holly Springs, still going to see my birthplace of Memphis, still, still talking to my old teammates in both college and high school, still talking to my friends from college, still just being who I am, just sticking to that. And that's how I balanced it. And with a lot of prayer and always talking to my mom, my siblings, reminding me of who I am, just
Staying
trying to
grounded.
stay grounded, man. Just staying grounded.
Within that balance, what do you find is the biggest challenge within that balance of working, being a father, being a husband, ministry? Where is your biggest challenge that you have to continue to be cognizant of on a regular basis?
Well, I think before I took this job on, I was in a very competitive environment where I'm trying to get test scores up, So there was no real balance in the sense that when you sign that contract as a principal, you're being judged on how well your test scores are. So it's always, you don't really get any rest because once test is over, you're preparing in the summer for next year. So with this job that I have now, I have time to really focus on my own mental, spiritual, and physical health.
Okay.
If you could say in the last jobs, I kind of lost my physical health because I was trying to serve everybody else, making sure everybody else is good and good. But here I kind of say I can still do that, but now I can focus on me too. Because if I'm not well mentally, emotionally, spiritually, then my leadership is going to affect those who I serve and lead. So, yeah. So I think now I'm able to balance more about myself.
Fantastic. Now you spoke a little bit on focusing on your health more. What steps did you take to focus more on your health?
The first thing was, diet, watching the types of food that I'm eating, how late I'm eating certain foods, make sure I get sleep, prioritizing sleep because you need, they say 7 to 8 hours, so at least try to get 6 to 7 hours of sleep every night, religiously,
Cool.
and then just making sure that I'm really considering what I'm eating. If I want to eat bad, I know I'm eating bad. Like today, I wanted some ice cream. I'm going to give me some
Right.
ice cream. So, but it's a conscious decision now. It's not just okay. Because when you stress, you just
Right.
eating, and you're not really being conscious about what you're choosing to eat. I was conscious about getting that ice cream today. So, but I was in control of that. I was in
Right.
control of that. I think before I lost control of that because I was just trying to survive and trying to make
Right.
sure everything is going well for everybody else, test scores and teachers and students, parents. And I was saying, Mike, are you okay? Are you healthy? So now, but yeah, so it started out with diet and sleep.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, you've alluded to it over these past few minutes. You have a new place of employment, and you're working with young people at Oakley Youth Development Center.
Yeah.
What do you believe they need most right now that goes beyond academics?
Well, see, the youth that I work with now need beyond academics is structure. And when I say structure, they're in a structured environment, but when they leave us, they go back into environments that are not as structured and full with trauma and things that lead them down destructive paths. So the youth that I serve right now, more important, more than anything, they need to develop their own ability to self-manage themselves.
Gotcha.
We call it social emotional learning, where you're learning how to regulate. You're making responsible decisions. You understand your self-awareness. You can self-manage yourself. You're socially aware. What's happening with you. So trying to teach those skills before they go back home, because they're going to go back into these environments that don't support that.
Right.
But if we can give them the skills to self-regulate themselves before they go back, they're going to be fine.
Within those attributes that you're teaching these young men, what do you see as the biggest challenge or the biggest thing for them to overcome as they transition from the things you teaching them and then they're, going back into the environment that, may be a factor in, how they are right now?
Self-awareness. Most of them don't really know themselves. They don't really. When I say that, they've been around other people. They've been in a lot of trauma. That's all they know. So they don't know, hey man, you good at drawing. You're exceptional at writing. Man, you know what? You really can run fast, man. Man, you know what, man? Or young lady, you're able to do this. So a lot of them not even self-aware of, what they bring to the table. They don't always know how to regulate their emotions, because when they hit 10, it's hard to get them to come down and think rational sometimes. So those emotional roller coasters that they go on, trying to teach them how to, and so this works great for me because I was that angry kid. So I can relate to them a lot because I'm like, okay, I know what you're going through. I really know. You're mad at somebody. So
Gotcha.
I can always relate to them because I know it's a management emotional thing. They're not managing it right.
Right.
But yeah, if they can, that's probably the biggest thing. They're responding off their emotions and it's not regulated in the point where they're rational and they're handling it the right way. They do irrational things and make
Gotcha.
irrational decisions.
Gotcha. And this is a great segue into our final question. Now, I just want to make a correction for something that I said. It's not just young men at this youth development center, it's young women as well, just young people in general.
That's
Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct. Young men
Okay.
and young ladies.
Cool. For students who've experienced disappointment, injury, setbacks, or detours, what would you want them to learn from your story? And you kind of mentioned it already with, you have a lived experience with these young men that you're working with right now that you can relate to. Is there anything else that you can share?
If I would, same thing I say every day. It's a part of your story. The challenge, the setback, the disappointment, the rejection, the denial. It's all a part of making you. It doesn't stop you from being who you are. It makes you. So don't let that stop you. Oh yeah, it's gonna hurt. But the hurt is part of it too. Value that hurt. Treasure it. Because you're gonna be able to help somebody else through it later on. So, hey man, it's tough right now, but just hang in there. God has a plan for everything you going through. And I believe that wholeheartedly. So, man, I'm glad I went through what I went. I'm glad I was that angry kid. I'm glad I didn't do my best in high school. I'm glad all of that because now I'm able to say, hey, I can relate to so many people in so many different ways.
Right.
So I embrace it all. And I tell you and whomever going through anything, embrace the journey. At the end of the day, you will bring glory to God's name.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mike J. I appreciate you. Now, before we close, let's talk about your family. Let's talk about these kids. Let's talk about some of these achievements of all these chitlins you have. Let's talk a little bit about your family, man.
Okay. What do you want to know? I mean, you want to know about your
start with the queen. Let's go from oldest to youngest. Just do a quick highlight because you can talk for days because they're all doing some wonderful things. But if you can hit a quick highlight for each of them.
Well, my wife, she's at her 25th year and she's working on her bakery business. So she's been doing great. Praise God for that. My oldest daughter is in Texas, working for a consulting firm. My second daughter just graduated from West Alabama. She just accepted a job at Shelton State in Tuscaloosa. My third daughter is doing great. She's graduated as well, and I think it was December of 25, and she's finishing up exchange student piece. Well, no, she had to finish up a foreign language class, which was in Chinese, and she's actually in Taiwan right now. Then my oldest son is representing. He's at Jackson State. Also, my oldest daughter graduated from Jackson State, so do have Jackson State blood in my children. So he's going into his senior year. He's majoring in math education. Then my baby girl is a senior this year at in high school, and my baby boy is a junior in high school right now. So they're all doing well.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate you, man. I think people can glean a lot from what you share with us, man. I really appreciate you, man. So with that being said, this episode has come to a close. I hope everybody got something out of this, and you all have a great evening.
God bless.
Thank you. All right, peace.